I think there's an art to film criticism and a way to analyze and explore why precisely something works or doesn't. However, over the past few years, I've noticed some odd behavior and phrases sometimes used that just feel like they throw proper analysis out the window and replace it with buzzwords and other meaningless comments. I'll occasionally be reading something articulate and well thought out, and then the critic throws in something that makes me stop reading. I feel like you can write and say something interesting about a movie's qualities and flaws without resorting to these sorts of tired and frankly absurd phrases. The one that has most aggravated me in recent years is, "This feels like it was made by AI." The use of generative AI has definitely become a problem, whether it's people thinking ChatGPT has all the answers, or when companies use it for promotional material instead of hiring someone who could do it much better. However, it seems like every movie under the sun gets hit with, "This feels like it was made by AI," even when it absolutely did not. One of the first reviews for Elemental after it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival used that phrase. A movie, by the way, that was based on the director's personal experiences and was inspired by the story of his parents immigrating to the United States. I've seen comments and reviews that say a script felt like it was written by ChatGPT on everything from Barbie to Oppenheimer to Everything Everywhere All at Once to even The Wild Robot. It is an utterly meaningless phrase based on absolutely no evidence whatsoever. In fact, often when generative AI or ChatGPT is actually used, not only is it incredibly obvious, but those responsible proudly and openly admit it rather than try to hide it. To me, saying "this feels like it was made by AI" is just a get-out-jail-free card to avoid analyzing why they felt it did not work, basically replacing "they clearly put no effort into it" or accusing a movie of laziness, which similarly annoy me. However, I think this might be worse and even more insulting in light of screenwriters striking over this and animators being concerned about being replaced. Recently, A24 even made a point to promote the fantasy movie The Legend of Ochi by showing how almost everything was done practically, as people kept accusing it before release of using AI. Guess what? AI did not invent the slow pan, nor did it invent stilted dialogue. If the Star Wars prequels came out today, people would definitely accuse George Lucas of using ChatGPT. The other phrase that really bothers me that's often thrown around is slop. To start with, it just feels like something an edgy teenager uses to describe something they don't like. And similar to the "feels like AI" remark, it's not something that goes into particular detail about why something does not work. People used to say that the characters were one-dimensional, or the story was unbelievable, or they did not feel the emotional elements were earned. Those are actual criticisms, while slop just sounds so stupid. When you say something is slop, it tells me nothing, nor provides any insight into your reaction towards the movie. When Siskel and Ebert would review a generic action movie they felt did not deliver the thrills or bring any sort of interesting ideas to the table, they explained precisely why they felt it underwhelmed in those areas. If they just said the movie was slop and left it at that, we would have lost the entertaining discussions that made their show what it is. A recent movie that quite a few reviews labeled as slop was The Electric State. Now, I did not like that movie very much. I did not think the world building was compelling, the characters were flat and had little in the way of interesting personality, and a lot of the attempts at emotion humor fell short. It seemed to be trying very hard to be something akin to an Amblin film, but lacked the necessary wonder in its story and world. I came to that opinion by engaging with the work, figuring out the intentions of the filmmakers and if they succeeded at their principal goals, and whether the creative choices were ones that I liked or not. Isn't that a much more interesting way of watching and looking at the movie than just going, "oh, it was slop"? Because I want to know how I connect with the material and look at its pros and cons and why the filmmakers made the decisions they did. What makes certain infamous bad movies like Sun the Mask and Troll 2 and Master of the Skies interesting to talk about is looking at them and thinking about how the various stages of development, production, and post led to what ended up on the screen. Just labeling them as slop removes that element from the discussion, and so you're not really saying anything. You're just throwing meaningless and childish words around, and that does not foster good film criticism. Another bizarre aspect of modern film criticism I've noticed is this strange parasocial attitude towards directors, treating their films as being made to personally annoy that specific viewer. Chances are, they don't even know who you are. It's okay to say maybe this director's work just does not gel with me. It happens, but it's not because of some personal vendetta against you and them personally going out of their way to make films you hate. Michael Bay is a director whose movies I've often struggled to take a liking to, and I have tried. I've even watched all his movies, with some I've given a second chance to see if they might win me over. But I don't invent this imaginary Michael Bay in my head who purposely sets out to make films that don't appeal to my taste. I'm pretty sure he has no idea who I am. I'll sometimes see the occasional critic treat a director like they kidnap their dog or slash their tires and make it seem like their filmography is responsible for world hunger or something. I've talked before about how you should not hold a grudge against a filmmaker because you don't like their movies, but make it seem like they're out to get you personally is a whole other level of hyperbole and silliness. I'm sorry, but no, Sean Levy is not your nemesis and did not make that movie because he wanted to get on your nerves. He just made some creative choices you disagreed with. Anyway, these are just some aspects of modern film criticism that start to bug me lately, and I feel do a disservice to film discussion. Thanks for watching.